The loudest voice in your life is not the critic in the stands, it's not the headlines, and it sure isn't the noise of the crowd cheering you on. The loudest voice in your life is the one only you can hear. That little whisper, that running dialogue, that quiet narrator behind the curtain. Yeah, that one. The voice inside. It speaks before you go to sleep. It greets you in the mirror when you wake up. It's with you in the car when the radio's off. And here's the truth. That voice is shaping you whether you realize it or not. We spend so much of our lives trying to manage what other people think, what they say about us, how they judge us. But most of the time, the verdict that actually sticks isn't theirs, it's ours. Because when somebody doubts us, we can dismiss it. When somebody criticizes us, we can argue against it. But when we tell ourselves the same thing, it becomes gospel. That voice inside has authority, it has weight. If it calls you a failure, you start living like one. If it tells you you're not ready, you stop showing up. If it says you're not enough, you start shrinking in rooms you were born to stand tall in. Now flip the coin. Imagine that same voice working in your favor. Imagine it saying, you're built for this. You've got something worth giving. You've got a shot here and it's yours to take. That's not delusion, that's direction. Because the world outside doesn't give you momentum, it only responds to it. And momentum begins with that inner word. The voice inside plants the seed, and your life grows in the direction of what you water. Think about it like this: every single one of us is running a script. And the script isn't written by strangers. It's written by repetition. The more you tell yourself something, the deeper it gets printed. If you say, I'm tired, I'm lost, I'm not cut out for this, your brain gets the memo and starts building evidence to back it up. But if you say, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm finding my stride, your brain hunts for proof of that instead. That's not magic, that's psychology. That's wiring. And here's where it gets interesting. You can't control every circumstance outside of you. You can't decide who doubts you, who walks out on you, who doesn't believe. But you do get to control that inner courtroom. You get to decide the verdict. The voice inside can either be a prison guard, locking you into the same patterns you've always known, or it can be a coach, pushing you forward, telling you, come on, you're not done yet. We often think power is about volume, about shouting louder than the critics. But the truth is, real power is about proximity. And there is no voice closer than the one inside your own head. That's why it matters most. Because it's not just talking to you. It's teaching you who you are, and you will always live out what you believe about yourself. 3 days doesn't sound like much, does it? Just 72 hours. But a lot can happen in that window if you choose to spend it differently. If you decide, for 3 days only, to speak nothing but truth to yourself, not the half-truths of doubt, not the exaggerations of fear, not the lies you've rehearsed so long they've started to sound familiar, just truth, raw, unpolished, straight to the bone. See, most of us are carrying around conversations we've been repeating for years. And if we're honest, a lot of those conversations aren't honest at all. They're padded with excuses, softened with denial, twisted with self-criticism. We tell ourselves stories about why we can't, why we won't, why it's not the right time, why it'll never work. And after a while, those stories become cages. Invisible bars, but strong enough to hold us still. Now imagine for 3 days you drop all of that. You catch the lie as it comes out, and you replace it with something true. Instead of, I'm not good enough, you say, I'm learning and I've already come farther than I give myself credit for. Instead of, I'll never change. You say, I can change, I just haven't committed long enough to see it through. Instead of, I don't deserve it, you say, I'm worthy of putting in the work and receiving the reward that follows. 3 days of that kind of talk will strip away layers you didn't even know you were carrying. Truth has a way of clearing the fog. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes it clearer. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop hiding from yourself. And that's when you begin to see what's really possible. Because the truth might sting, sure, but it also heals. It exposes the wound so you can stop pretending it isn't there and finally start treating it. But here's the catch. Truth telling is uncomfortable. It doesn't come naturally because the lies we tell ourselves are padded. They're comfortable, like an old couch you sink into even though you know the springs are broken. Truth feels harder. It makes you sit up straight. It makes you take notice. And that's why just 3 days is enough to start shaking something loose. You don't need a lifetime contract, just a trial run. Think of it like cleaning out a closet. For years you've piled up junk you don't need, don't even like. But you keep it because it's familiar. Then one day you decide to pull everything out, hold it up and ask, do I actually need this? That's what truth does. It takes the words you've been holding on to, holds them up to the light and asks, is this helping me or is this just weighing me down? 3 days. That's it. Long enough to notice what's been cluttering your head. Long enough to feel the difference between a lie and a truth when you say it out loud. Long enough to realize that the words you choose aren't just commentary, they're construction material. They're building the life you're about to step into, brick by brick, line by line, thought by thought. Every word you speak is more than sound. It's a seed. Plant enough of them, water them with repetition, and soon they start to take root in the soil of your mind. And once they take root, they don't just sit there, they grow. They become the vines that wrap around the way you see yourself, the branches that stretch into the choices you make, the fruit that shows up in the life you're living. Words don't just describe reality, they design it. Think about the way a single word can shift the entire temperature of a room. Someone says, "I believe in you," and suddenly your shoulders square, your eyes lift, your chest expands. Or someone says, "You'll never make it," and the air gets heavy, your confidence shrinks, your ambition pulls back. The words didn't change your skill set, your talent, your potential. They changed the atmosphere you were standing in. And that shift was powerful enough to change how you acted next. Now take that same principle and move it inward. The words you repeat to yourself are the climate you live in. You can build a desert with them dry, lifeless, scorching with doubt, or you can build a garden rich, alive, growing with possibility. You carry that climate everywhere you go. If your inner words are constant storms, don't be surprised when life feels like a flood. But if your inner words are steady light, don't be surprised when things begin to bloom. Science has shown that your brain is always listening. It doesn't sit back and analyze whether what you're saying is true or false. It just records, programs, and adapts. Say, "I can't do this," enough times and your brain will start filing that as fact. Say, "I will figure this out," enough times and your brain goes to work finding solutions. The language you use becomes the software your mind runs on. And here's the thing, words don't need to be loud to be powerful. A whisper has the same authority if it's repeated often enough. That's why the quiet phrases you mutter under your breath, the small thoughts you let slide by unchallenged, matter just as much as the big declarations. Those little moments of language are steering the ship, often more than the dramatic speeches you give yourself on the big days. We all know how words can wound. A sentence from years ago can still echo in your head today, shaping how you walk into a room, how you trust, how you dream. But if words can wound, they can also heal. They can restore. They can lift you out of places you thought you were stuck for good. They can create a new vision of who you are becoming, and that vision begins to pull you forward. So every time you speak to yourself about yourself, you are setting direction. Every word is a brushstroke painting the picture you will eventually step into. Every word is a draft of the script you'll live out. Every word is a brick in the reality you are building around you. One sentence at a time. The mirror doesn't lie, but it doesn't tell the whole truth either. What it reflects is skin deep, hair, eyes, lines, scars, but it can't show you the full weight of who you are. The danger is we often stop at what we see. We let that glass dictate the story. We stare into it and ask the wrong questions. What's wrong with me? Why don't I look like them? Why can't I measure up? That mirror becomes a judge instead of just a piece of glass. But here's the thing, the mirror is neutral. It doesn't hand out verdicts, you do. You bring the script, the bias, the insecurities, and you project them onto the reflection. The mirror is just the stage, but the voice speaking through it is your own. And if you're not careful, that voice becomes a habit, a ritual of criticism you perform every time your eyes meet your own. Now imagine flipping the script. Imagine standing in front of that same glass and asking a different question. What's strong in me? Instead of zooming in on the flaws, the blemishes, the things you wish you could hide, you start hunting for what's holding you up, what's working, what's worth being proud of. You notice the resilience in your eyes, the strength in your posture, the history carried in your scars. You begin to see not just the body that's been through the fire, but the person who walked out of it still standing. Challenging the mirror doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending you love every inch of what you see. It means refusing to reduce yourself to just what's visible. It means remembering that the reflection is not the definition. That glass can't capture your determination, your kindness, your creativity, your grit. Can't measure your potential. It can't hold the laughter you've given away or the love you've carried through hard days. And yet, too often, we let it trick us into thinking it has the final say. If the mirror is going to be part of your life, and it will be, then it's on you to redefine the conversation. When you walk up to it, don't just check the surface. Challenge it. Talk back. Refuse to let it be a one-way report. Ask better questions. Replace what's wrong with right. Replace why am I not enough? How far have I come? Replace what's missing with what's mine to build next. Because here's the truth. The person staring back at you is listening. They hear every word. They carry it with them into the day. They live it out in how they walk, how they speak, how they treat others, and how they treat themselves. And if you let the mirror always speak first, you'll end up living in its shadow. But if you challenge it, if you claim the right to narrate what you see, you begin to shift the reflection from just an image into a reminder of something bigger. Momentum is one of those forces you can't see, but you can always feel. It's the invisible push that keeps you moving forward when you'd rather stop, the tailwind that turns small steps into steady strides. And the truth is, momentum doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from chance. It doesn't even come from talent. It comes from mindset. The way you think about yourself, about your challenges, about what's possible, is the spark that lights the engine. Mindset is the lens. It colors everything. Two people can face the same obstacle, but if one says, this is impossible, and the other says, this is a chance to learn, they're not living the same reality anymore. The facts in front of them haven't changed, but the momentum behind them has. One stops before they start. The other begins to move, and movement, any movement, creates more movement. That's the nature of momentum. It feeds on itself. Think about the difference between a boulder sitting still at the bottom of a hill and one that's already rolling. That first push is the hardest. It feels heavy, stubborn, unwilling to move. But once it gets rolling, you barely need to touch it. It carries its own weight forward. That's what mindset does for you. It's the hand on the boulder. If your thoughts are rooted in fear, doubt, or excuses, that rock stays stuck. But if your thoughts are rooted in belief, resilience, and possibility, you start to feel the shift. You start to notice movement where before there was only frustration. Momentum from mindset isn't about waking up one day with the perfect plan. It's about waking up and choosing to think differently, even in small ways. You tell yourself, I can handle this one step, and then you do. That single step gives you the confidence for another. The more you think in terms of growth instead of defeat, the easier it becomes to keep moving. Before long, you're no longer forcing yourself forward. You're being carried by the rhythm you've built. And here's the beauty of it, momentum doesn't need big leaps to get started. It can come from something as simple as keeping a promise to yourself, finishing the task you said you'd finish, speaking kindly to yourself when you'd normally criticize. Those little choices stack up, they turn into patterns, and patterns turn into habits, and habits turn into momentum. And once you have momentum, even the tough days don't stop you completely. You might slow down, but you don't go back to zero. We underestimate how much power a thought can carry. One thought shifts the posture of your whole day. One mindset shift can change how you walk into a meeting, how you approach a challenge, how you treat the setback you didn't see coming. And each time you choose a thought that pushes you forward instead of pulling you back, you're giving yourself a push on that boulder. Little by little, you build speed, you build direction, you build force. That's momentum, and it starts in the mind. Every big change starts small. It rarely begins as a grand declaration or a lifelong vow. It more often starts as an experiment. A short test run. You say to yourself, let me try this for a little while. Let me see what happens. You don't promise forever. You just promise a few days, maybe a week, maybe a month. That's manageable. That's something you can grab hold of. At first, it feels strange. The new words you speak to yourself, the new habits you're trying on, they don't fit like a second skin yet. They feel borrowed, like clothes you're not sure you can pull off. You stumble a little. You remind yourself out loud. You catch yourself slipping into the old pattern and you pull yourself back. That's what the experiment is for. It gives you permission to practice without demanding perfection. But here's where it gets interesting when you stick with it, even for a short window. You begin to feel the difference. You notice that when you speak better words to yourself, your mood shifts. You notice that when you hold yourself to a new standard, you rise a little taller. You notice that when you choose truth over lies, encouragement over doubt, direction over confusion, your days don't just feel different, they become different. And once you taste that difference, it's hard to go back. The experiment plants a seed. You told yourself it was temporary, but your mind and body start to crave the results. You don't want to return to the heaviness you carried before. You don't want to hand the microphone back to the old script. You'd rather keep building on this new rhythm because it feels lighter, it feels truer, it feels like momentum. What started as a trial begins to settle into a pattern, and patterns are what form identity. That's how the experiment becomes the lifestyle. You wake up one morning and realize you're no longer forcing it. You're just doing it. The words you had to remind yourself to say are now the words that come naturally. The mindset you once practiced in the mirror has become the mindset you carry through your day. What was once effort has turned into instinct. And when that shift happens, the experiment is no longer about testing, it's about living. The beauty of starting with an experiment is that it lowers the bar for entry. You don't need to carry the pressure of a lifetime commitment. You only need to carry the curiosity of what happens if I try this. And when the answer to that question is, I feel better, I think clearer, I act stronger, then the choice to keep going is no longer forced, it's natural. You choose it again, not because you promised you would, but because you've seen who you are when you do. The temporary test grows into a lasting practice, and the practice grows into a way of being.